You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
You are now entering Magnified Studios. Welcome.
Coming to you from Magnified Studios, Magnified Pod presents It's Hard to Find a Podcast, covering your favorite indie bands from the 90s Christian alternative scene. Put your tape decks on record. I'm Andrew.
I'm John.
And this is our podcast. And John, if there's anything I can say about these last number of episodes, it's that it's been very uplifting. just feeling just encouraged and lighthearted and full of hope.
There's no more bummers to be had.
Yes.
I don't know. Your music listening though is only slightly less happier than the population apparently though, right?
that is true.
Thanks to big trucks.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the musictaste.space. If you guys aren't familiar with that website, it links up with your Spotify premium account and it shows you your music analytics based on your Spotify listening habits. And and I forget, there wasn't Big Trucks. There was a Pedro song that was like it was saying it was like my happiest song. I'm like, oof, man.
It was Big Trucks.
Was it?
Yeah. It was they rate Big Trucks as 97% happy. But you are only 43% happy. But that's 3% lower than the average.
I still think me being 43% happy is a little too high.
Yeah.
The polygraph determined that was a lie.
Yeah,
I feel like Maury to get on this. Let's get him on the pod.
Spotify is gonna be like, "You okay, bro?" to us both pretty soon. Like, you sure you don't want to listen to I don't know, some LMFAO? You need a little party rock anthem.
Yeah. Well, sad indie jams aside, something that I do want to say that I am happy about is we've talked about some of the shows that we are going to be seeing this summer. And it just seems like every week I'm adding another one to my list.
I have so many in the next month.
I know my shows in May through July are just out of control.
Yeah. But
added to the list very recently, coming to First Avenue, July 11th, Japanese Breakfast.
Cool.
With the Lindas.
Cool.
So
you're reunited with your beautiful daughters.
I know, right? That week it will be nothing but Asian queens. I have Japanese Breakfast, the Lindas, and then later that Thursday I'm seeing Mitski.
Oh yeah.
So just nothing but like dope women of color rocking out all week.
That
so
rules.
Pumped about it.
Never see Japanese Breakfast. I've always wanted to. I haven't read Crying in the H Mart either, although I think Jenny read it and said she liked a lot. I want to read that. Linda's no Chicago date. So I'm like, are they gonna play Lala? But I feel like they announced Lala and they're not on there. I don't think they're at Pitchfork, so maybe they still got a date time to announce or something. And Mitski is at Pitchfork, so I plan to see her this summer as well. So
I know it's one of those things that I'm sort of glad that Minnesota doesn't have one of those huge festivals like Chicago does, because so many bands use that as their summer Chicago show excuse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, I've never been to Lala. I've never been to Pitchfork. I've never been to Riot Fest because I hate giant festivals.
Yeah.
I would much rather be in a room with a couple hundred people or less.
Yeah.
And being able to see the stage.
Yeah.
Mixed up in the pit if I want.
I have been to all those things. And the right act can work for that kind of thing.
Sure.
But usually I'm bummed out when I find out somebody I want to see is playing Lala, because I'm not like gonna pay hundreds of dollars and stand around all day with 18-year-olds and wait in line just for a shorter show than I'd see normally.
Like 20 minutes of them like 4 miles away with some jackass 18-year-old on her boyfriend's shoulders, like blocking everybody. Like, no, pass.
I do love outdoor shows in the summer, and if they're like headlining and you're close to the stage, that can be a very unique and fun experience. But if it's a band that I'd like rather be seeing in a dark room with the good acoustics and stuff, I'm just kind of like, oh man, oh well. So I think the last Lala I went to was when Radiohead headlined, and that was, I don't know, at least like 7 years ago maybe, and I felt far too old for it then. So I can only imagine dragging my raggedy ass around those fairgrounds now.
They don't have chairs for us olds out there.
No. It's rough out there.
I'm not gonna stand around all day with like in the sun.
Yeah.
Like, no, hell no. I mean, I sound like old man shaking fist at cloud, but
sure.
It's the reality is festivals are a young man's game.
Yes. Well, we will report back throughout our hopefully non-canceled months of shows coming up here.
Yes.
And including Pedro the Lion.
Yes, a week from today.
I should mention this just in case anybody happens to be listening to this on Sunday night or the early hours of Monday morning, and you happen to be within reasonable distance of Chicago. I will be going to a Sound Opinions taping, the podcast, beloved show, featuring Pedro, where he's going to do a short set and an interview, and that's on Monday, May 2nd. So probably by the time most people are listening to this, it'll be over. But maybe I can report back on that later.
Yes.
Sound Opinions having been produced for a long time by a friend of the pod, Andrew Gill. So I'll report back on any, unique insights or special hangs I get with Bazan next time.
Yes. So you'll be seeing him on May
Sunday,
2nd.
Yeah, as we're recording. And
wait.
Sunday, May 1st.
You're seeing him Sunday, May 1st.
And then also Monday morning, May 2nd.
Okay. And then I'll be seeing him in Minneapolis, May 3rd.
And he's going to know all about the podcast by the end of those few days.
He's going to be like, can I get Andrew from Magnified Pod up on the stage? Anything you want to ask at this point in the show? I'd be like, a question about Cum Corner. No.
Get to bring Cum Corner back.
I did. Sorry, can't help myself.
No, he's gonna be like, I've been hearing a lot of things about this podcast about me, and
streets are talking.
I don't know if I'm into it, but cool, do your thing, man. Be that kind of vibe. That was a great impression. So all that summer concert talk has me a little thirsty,
dude. Same.
I'm back in weird beer territory tonight.
Okay.
And I got very stellar local brewer.
Brewer.
You know about Unane Brewery?
Ferris Brewer.
Ferris Brewers, they are. Unane Brewing in Niles, which is not too far from here. They are delightful, and they have like a sort of imprint, I don't know what you call it, called Hubbard's Cave, where they kind of do their like most intense stuff, I guess. And I'm drinking a French toast, which is an imperial stout fermented with cinnamon, maple syrup, vanilla beans, and lactose. So we'll see how this goes. 12% ABV. So, you get messed up, bro.
Getting lit.
Hell yeah.
Well, I'm back on the booze game after recovering from being sick.
Sure.
And since this last weekend, I was in Wisconsin I, of course, needed to grab a couple 6-packs of some New Glarus.
Hell yeah. What kind did you get?
I am cracking. I have 2 beers down here right now, but the first one I'm cracking open right now is the Moon Man.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
The No Coast Pale Ale.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who are not from the Midwest and have not had a chance to have any New Glarus, the only way you would get New Glarus is if you go to Wisconsin. Their thing is to drink indigenously, and it's a employee-owned, only in Wisconsin beer. They don't distribute anywhere, so they want to keep their operation small and employee-owned, and they can consistent. So
respect.
Yeah. So they could. I mean, would people love to be able to get New Glarus in the surrounding Midwest states? Definitely.
Yes.
But I just think there's something about making a brand and a beer a destination that makes it a little bit more special and a little bit more of a like, oh shit, I need to grab a case of Spotted Cow or Moon Man, or
or in my case, when I drove through last time, a raspberry tart, which is delightful. I feel like their fruitier stuff is harder to find, but very tasty.
I also have a Two Women, which is
also good.
Their lager. Enjoy a lager every now and then, obviously.
Of course. This French toast is intense. It's like drinking syrup. So,
well, I mean, it's already an imperial stout,
and
then it's like
syrup poured in,
fermented syrup and vanilla, and it's woo, getting lit.
Yeah, let's talk about songs about murder and suicide again, baby.
Hooray! Feeling great. John, we're not the only ones who are pretending to feel great. We have other people who have shared their thoughtful thoughts about the pod and our recent episodes. And they've sent us some voice memos. They've sent us voicemails. You can leave us a voicemail at 872-762-4763. Let's hit up some of those voicemails now. We got Matt.
Hey guys, it's your boy Matt Jones calling from Mount Vernon, Ohio. Super, super excited about this new season of Magnified Pod. I am a big fan of Pedro the Lion and David Bazan. About 2003, at Cornerstone, these 2 young girls, one of them was, her name was Heather Winna. She's married, or she is in a relationship with Steve Albini, the record producer, the engineer. Mm-hmm. So anyways, these 2 girls, one of them which was Heather Winna, went to Cornerstone, and they ended up making a documentary, and it was called Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music?
Yes.
You could actually, I think you can watch it for free on YouTube. But they interviewed David Bazan, and you get to catch some of his live performances, like little snippets of some songs. So parts of that documentary are worth checking out. The other parts aren't so great. But anyways, love you guys. Appreciate everything you do. I am so excited about this new season, and I hope you guys just have a great season. So MagPod for life. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.
I feel like I've heard of that, but I've not. I don't think I've ever seen it.
We may have talked about this documentary at some point on the pod, but yes, came out in 2004, and I got sent a copy when I was working at Sojourners around that time. And I watched it at the intern house that I lived in. And of course, Bazan plays a central role as one of those interviews that's in. There's a bunch of interviews in the documentary. I think MXPX is in there, maybe, possibly. I don't know. Were they still at Cornerstone 2003? I don't remember, but it is interesting. And my memory is that Bazan is sort of the most interesting part. And that was right around the time that he was infamously performing at Cornerstone drunk and then was banned from the grounds, which is part of the strange negotiations doc that we'll get into in more detail in a few weeks. But I forgot the detail that Heather Winna was Steve Albini's partner, which is fascinating. But yes, there's also I think it's a new, relatively recent book called Why Should the Devil Have All the Good Music?
Maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, that one is also about sort of the history of Christian rock, but also focused specifically on Larry Norman as sort of the father of Christian rock. So
that's probably what I was thinking of instead, and not the documentary. Okay.
Yeah, both interesting. I think he sort of coined that phrase.
Sure.
But anyway, yes, I remember that as well, Matt.
We got Paul.
Hey there, my name's Paul. I'm a listener to the podcast, and I've been thinking I got to send this story for the Control episode, and then I see, oh, look, it's already out. Hopefully you can find a use for this. So I've got a story about going to see Pedro the Lion when they were touring Control. I live in Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada, and my sister is 3 years older than me, and she went to university at a place called Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. Now, when I was 18, which is I think I was about 18 when Control came out. I was either 17 or 18. Pedro the Lion was playing in Toronto, which is, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour from Kingston. So I talked my parents into flying me out to visit my sister at university.
Nice.
Awesome. So I go and I get some tickets for myself and my sister, and a bunch of her friends from university want to go as well. And it's at a place in Toronto called the Horseshoe Tavern. So it's a bar, which means that you have to be of legal drinking age. Now, where I live, the legal drinking age is 18. So it doesn't even cross my mind, boom, I'm 18. I can totally go. And then as we're getting closer to me, flying out there, it occurs to me, the legal drinking age in Ontario is 19. So I am not old enough to go to this show. So I mentioned to my parents, hey, we're going to see this show in Toronto at a bar, and I am not old enough to get in. Now, again, I'm perfectly legal in my home province, but not in Ontario. So about 2 weeks beforehand, my parents and I spend that entire time trying to find me a fake ID.
Amazing.
Just the very notion of getting your parents to help you find a fake ID so you can illegally go to a bar out of province always struck me as a little odd. But eventually, I found a guy who made me one, and I went, and the show was incredible. And oddly enough, the Foo Fighters were doing a live show a block away at Much Music. Much Music at the corner of Queen and John in Toronto, which is right by the Horseshoe Tavern. So I got to see a few minutes of the Foo Fighters for free on the street the same night. That's all. Really love the show. I hope you find use for this. Take it easy, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Paul.
That is an amazing story.
It's a Canadian story.
Shout out to your parents.
Yeah.
For helping you get a fake ID.
I feel like that's an only in Canada thing.
Yeah. But I think, but like, it's kind of bullshit. Like 18 and 19, like
those provinces.
Those crazy provinces. Paul's
parents are like, oh, sure. I think it's about time you went to a show. We'll find you a fake ID.
This Pedro sounds like a real nice fella. Now it's just like sort of becoming Minnesotan.
Yeah, it's a blurry line.
It's a blurry line.
That's an amazing story. Props to your parents. Sounds like an incredible night. What a cool family. I had fake IDs in college. My parents didn't help me with them, and they were poorly made, and one resulted in a near arrest. I won't get into those details right now. But it sounds like you had a better fake ID going than mine. So glad you were able to do that.
Were you mostly using those to get into shows, or was it also?
It was for drinking.
It was for the drinking. Yeah,
you may remember me getting banned from the Bruin View / the Vic for life.
Yes, I do remember you telling.
Lifetime ban.
Lifetime ban
changed in 2 weeks when I went back and nobody noticed. But that was because I put my ID in my teeth as I was going through my wallet, and I took it out of my teeth, and it had like blurred the like image on the ID. It was like, this is not going to fool anybody. That doesn't happen to real IDs. And the rest is history. But anyway, I'm glad it worked out for Paul.
Yes. And also awesome, like a sort of like a double feature of sorts, getting to see
Hell
a little
yeah.
bit of the Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
Yes.
Much Music is like a store, right? I feel like Much Music is a channel.
We have a handful of consistent Canadian listeners, and I gotta be honest, guys. I'm so uneducated about so many different parts of the different provinces.
Yeah, it's really a shame that us like upper northern Americans even are like, wow, we have no idea what's going on like 20 minutes north of our border.
I know, for real. I mean, especially me, like it's not that far from where I live in Minnesota to get to Canada. And I got to get my act together, and I need to make it here's what we'll do. I'll put it out there. Like, if there's some stuff that in Canada, our Canadian listeners, that we've got to make some destination spots, that are obviously reasonable. I mean, for me, Ontario is obviously one of the closer provinces.
Yes, you got Thunder Bay up there.
Yeah,
easily accessible. But yeah, I think it's often like, well, that's close to Toronto, right? And they're like, no, that's much further east. Like, how do you not know this? And we're like, sorry.
We're dumb.
Let's see a little propaganda action up there. Who knows?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, also, like, Winnipeg is like, it's still pretty far, but I mean, like, that's also
relatively close.
We'll say it's doable.
Yeah. Closer than Toronto or Vancouver, which are the only two most people know. And
I've been to Vancouver, but that was forever ago.
What we really need to do is what we discussed with Chris McGrath, a bunch of the same, is do a Montreal tour.
Ooh,
Magpod Live, Magpod in Montreal, going up there and seeing some bands play. Pop punk is alive and well up there. That'd be super fun. Anyway, someday.
For sure. And I've also always wanted to make it out to Nova Scotia.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Prince Edward Islands. That it just all looks so beautiful.
Anyway, I have a feeling I'd feel more at home in Canada. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start by getting you feeling at home in Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm working my way north.
Then we can discuss.
Yes, slowly but surely.
Hey, we got some Robert Gay, who we shouted out last week with his cover of a Pedro song from some years ago.
Hey, Magpod, it's Robert Gay, and I just wanted to say I've been having a lot of fun diving back in for this season, and it's a really good time to be listening to Pedro the Lion because they're on tour. And tonight is Tuesday, April 19th, and I just saw Pedro the Lion play live in Nashville, Tennessee at the Basement East, and they were great. They played as a three-piece with Dave on bass and a guy playing like lap guitar and a drummer, and it was a really cool setup. A lot of new material from the most recent two albums, Phoenix and Havasu, and it was great. Also ran into my mentor, great writer, teacher, Dr. Dark.
Yes.
Dr. David Dark, and also Derek Webb. So I'm glad that they were both hanging out, watching the show. I know they're friends of Dave's as well, Bazan. But anyway, thank you guys for doing what you're doing and sharing the spotlight on Pedro, because I feel like it's right up the alley of that Christian alternate scene, and it meant a lot to me at the same time that I was growing up with bands like MXPX and Five Iron and all of that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool to explore the way faith gets broken down and to have people like Dave Bazan who are making that accessible for people to ask questions that maybe we didn't feel comfortable getting to ask when we were growing up. MagPod for life. Also, P.S. I think I sent you guys a cover of Mr. Hole Fixin' Man from way back in like 2008. So enjoy that or not. Have a great day. MagPod for life again. Bye.
Bobby G.
Yes,
Thank you.
I don't think he's made it to that episode last week, or the previous episode, not last week, but whatever.
Yeah.
But we did cover Mr. Hole Fixin' Man.
We sure did. That rules. Yeah, I've said before, we need to. That's another place we need to do a Nashville MagPod stop.
Oh man,
see our friends down there. But mainly, I want to meet David Dark, who I have followed for a long time, and I think he's awesome. And I want Robert to make me his friend.
I want to hang out with Derek Webb. What a cool show to just be like, just rubbing elbows with David Dark and Derek Webb, Dave Bazan.
Hell yeah.
And of course Bobby G, of course. The big four.
Big four. Derek Webb, very topical. We were just talking about, is there room to cover him this season or sometime on the pod? Cademan's doing that Kickstarter for that new album. So maybe it's, Derek Webb's in the air. Maybe it's time.
It's something interesting that Bobby G brought up about, so just sort of alluding to the kind of the questions and the shifting of faith that Bazan went through. Mm-hmm. And just looking at all of the bands that we have covered in these past few seasons, that I think that Bazan is unique amongst all of them, even though some of the bands maybe they have personally or individually changed some of their views. I don't think a lot of that was entirely necessarily coming through in the music.
Sure, right.
Maybe Mike Herrera's views have changed, but maybe that he's not really writing about that. Maybe over time, obviously some members of Five Iron, their religious views changed, but that's not always coming through in the music because Reese is writing the lyrics, and so I do think this is a very unique season, in that we get to have these conversations about the lyrics and not just about our own individual experiences.
Right.
So I think that's it's just another way for us to talk about these things, not just us, but the depths of Dave's. I'm just going to call him Dave, because we're buddies.
Yep.
But just his experiences. And as these albums go on, getting a sense that he's maybe starting to get a little bit more personal, especially this album. I think we're starting to crack a little of that facade of those only writing in stories or in fiction, but getting maybe a little bit more personal.
Yeah, definitely. As we've talked about a lot, we're analyzing these lyrics from 25 years ago, and then we talk to the songwriters today, and they're like, I've changed a lot since then. And not necessarily getting the opportunity to track that progress through their records in the last 20 years. A lot of these bands broke up, and then now they're talking to us. Possibly they reunited, but they weren't necessarily going through the last 20 years like Dave has. So it is interesting to watch that sort of process throughout all those records. So good stuff.
We got our boy Jason in LA.
Hey guys, it's Jason out here in LA. Driving to work right now at 3 in the morning. I just have to talk about Control, which is my favorite album. It was a great episode you guys did. One story I have about Control, I was once listening to it on a CD Discman, going to a youth workers conference back when I was doing that. And I was, rocking out, listening to this girl goes, "Oh, what are you listening to?" I go, "Oh, Pedro the Lion." And she's like, "Oh, can I listen?" And so I hand her the headphones, and the part of the song of Indian Summer that she gets to listen to, the name of the song, but it wasn't Indian Summer, but the part of the song where it says that way they'll naturally get used to the taste of corporate cum.
It is Indian
Come to her
Summer.
ear, and the look on her face was horror, and I was like, all right, I'm going to be in trouble because this girl, her brother was a youth pastor, so she never said anything, but she just gave me this look like, okay, this is what you're listening to going to a youth workers conference. But hey, Pedro the Lion. And then another song, Rejoice. I can really relate to that past, I guess, 3 to 5 years going through divorce and custody of my children. It's been hell. I've felt that way. I still have faith. I still go to church. But recently I have been angry with God just because I haven't been able to see my kids as much as I want to. There's other stuff. Right when I thought things were going good, the shit hit the fan big time. I won't go into details, but it's been terrible. I love my daughters more than anything, and my ex-wife just takes them away from me. And I know that song I can relate to because it seems like we have to rejoice. Because I've heard when I saw Pedro the Lion one time, he talked about that song, like you guys talking about. He was saying it is sarcastically saying like, as Christians, we're supposed to rejoice even when we're going through tough stuff. But you guys keep up the good work. Magpie for life.
Hey, thanks, man. Jason, we love you, buddy. I'm really sorry to hear about how things have been going lately. I hope that, the music and the pod and the scene can be a little bit of a comfort. You can always call in and share with us what's going on with you, and we're glad to hear it. But I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, I can't begin to, obviously, yes, I've been through divorce myself, but this kind of, I can't imagine. So we love you, man. Of course, Magpod community is here for you, and we always got your back.
That's right. What's that 21-second one?
What's this one you're wondering?
Ooh. That's a first. That's a first.
That is a first. The cackler flush in the toilet.
Yeah. I'm surprised it's taken 4 seasons to get a toilet flush, but
it's true. The Foley work, he's really stepped it up.
Yeah. And there's been a cornucopia of sounds this season.
I know. It's a symphony beneath a symphony of what was it?
Are you talking about the mattress creaking beneath the symphony of misery and cum?
Yeah.
Hasn't quite been that kind of symphony, but
no, definitely not that kind of symphony.
Thank you, Cackler.
Thank you as always. All right, we have an email and a voice memo from Joel Kircher. He wanted to talk about Control.
Gentlemen of the Magnified Pod, my name is Joel. I'm from the Ithaca area of New York, Finger Lakes region. More specifically, I live in the town of Burdett, right next to Watkins Glen of NASCAR fame and beauty.
I got to shout out Watkins Glen real quick before I forget. I have been to Watkins Glen because out in that area is a farm sanctuary.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it is, and I did stay in Watkins Glen at the base of Seneca Lake, one of the Finger Lakes. And it is a beautiful, beautiful spot. Lots of wine, lots of places to drink wine.
Watkins Glen State Park is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Anyway, if you're ever out here, drop me a line. I thought I'd share a few thoughts and experiences that center around Pedro the Lion as David Bazan is probably the single most influential musician, artist, writer, and possibly person in my life. I won't share all my stories with you, but I thought I'd share the ones that are kind of more pertinent to the podcast. I first heard Pedro the Lion in 1999 at Cornerstone. I had kind of heard of and been told by several people that I would like Pedro the Lion. And so I went to hear the set, and I really keyed in on the songs Lullaby and Criticism is Inspiration. He really stuck out to me as a person who was saying things that I didn't think you could say in Christian music. And let me tell you, I was in Christian and Christian music, like so deep in the culture. I didn't really listen to quote unquote secular music at the time. And so it was so exciting to kind of find someone who was edgy and challenging and really already a voice of reason to the things that already bothered me about the church a little bit. But the next year, Cornerstone 2000, there's an acoustic set, by the way, from Cornerstone 2000. If you ever find yourself a bootleg, listen. It's beautiful. He was doing hymns and stuff and acoustic versions of a lot of songs that you guys have covered on the pod. And really, really good. I've listened to the bootleg over and over again like it's one of his albums. But when he played his electric set, Second Best was the new song that he played, and I was prepared for that to be my number one song for the rest of my life. Starflyer 59 had kind of moved on from the heavy distortion, driving rhythms, shoegaze, and I was kind of feeling a void in my life. And Second Best filled it. So I ordered the record of Control, and that was when vinyl actually came on time. I got that record on release day and put it on, and the album was not like that. But it was better in a lot of ways. I was in a really difficult place in my life. My relationship was separated. My marriage relationship was separated. My wife had cheated on me with my best friend. So this album was about me. Totally missed all the social commentary. Not totally, but definitely didn't really register much of the social commentary or societal commentary other than just recognizing, well, that's about the environment. Oh, that's about the cynicism of business. Magazine was number one because I realized, through my recent experiences that, we're all good, we're all wicked. And if we're going to judge ourselves on that binary transition, 1 minute we're one, 1 minute we're the other. None of us are all of one or all of the other. We're all capable of way more evil, bad, wrong things than we thought we were capable of in the first place. And that became my number one. And when you guys did that drum sound, or talking about the drum sound, and somebody goes, I got upset because I was going to do it in this message and, add something to the conversation. And you are already recognizing exactly what I was keying in on was the incredible presence of those drums. To this day, I still play that song in my set when I play live. And it's a mainstay for me in my life. So that's my number one song on the album. Control. Options is number 3.
Joel, thank you for your message, and for sharing so honestly about things that were going on. Something happened with the message. It got cut off, or I don't know, got corrupted at one point. So I'm not sure. We missed a big ladder chunk of your message, but you indicate in your email, you said that you mentioned it in your message. We didn't hear it, but there was you have a song that you made, Love is a Business Proposition. Angus McKinney, was that the name of the band?
this state in a different state than when I came. Only wanted to leave this state alive.
Some noisy as hell rock.
Pretty cool. I could see the Control influence there on the sonic nature of that, and I could see, you mentioned Starflyer. I see some of that influence too, probably.
Definitely the super distorted vocals.
Yes,
and everything just being loud and fuzzy and dirty. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Joel. Go check out angusmckinney.bandcamp.com for more of that, folks. Thanks for calling in and sharing that, bud.
We also got an email from Sarah. She said, hey guys, I discovered the pod about a year ago, but kept it on the back burner because Pedro/Bazan has always been more my pace than the other music you discuss. So as you can imagine, I was excited to see you guys delve into the series. I've been following Bazan since the beginning, and like many others, his faith journey uncannily parallels my own, along with other random synchronicity. For example, the album Phoenix was released shortly after my cousin died who lived in Phoenix. Seems random and meaningless, but when combined with other instances, it's not. Anyway, for Superfan, I've actually only been to 3 that I can recall of his shows. 1, Christian College, with an opener who had candles lit on the stage and was very strange. I hit a deer on the way back with my parents' van.
Sounds like a traumatic and memorable evening.
Yes. 2, club in Seattle alone on my birthday. I had just moved and had no friends yet. 3, house show where I accidentally was able to talk to Bazan for about 20 minutes because I snuck into the kitchen to get a beer after the show and he was there. I didn't realize there was a line forming behind me because I would have felt bad and cut the conversation short. Real genuine guy. Also, did I mention our sons were born within a few days of each other? I don't know if that means her son and Bazan's son, or
I think so.
Yeah, I would assume so. I don't know if she knows when your
kids' birthdays are. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for letting me ramble. Bazan has meant a lot to me over the years, and I'm really enjoying the deep dive you guys are doing.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. I would love to be able to go to one of those house shows, but I feel like if I had a chance to talk to Bazan, I would probably say something stupid. It's one of those things where it's when you have such a short amount of time to talk to somebody, you feel the pressure to say something meaningful.
Right.
And I think I've talked about this, like if I were to ever meet someone like Weird Al, who is one of my musical idols, if we were to say that, for somebody who's been in the business for decades and has met thousands and thousands of people, how do you say something that he hasn't heard before, or something that's like, I don't know, I don't know, maybe I'm being too cynical about someone like Bazan. First, if I were to be like, my journey and your journey seem to have paralleled, and it's like listening to your music now, it's meaningful. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm being too cynical than assuming that wouldn't be important to him, but like, I don't know.
I think that's partly why he does what he does. I mean, he definitely, I have seen many a living room show. You'll get the chance to talk to him very soon. But like you're saying, that's at a club and maybe, you're under the pressure of time or whatever. But like, he certainly hangs out when he does those house shows and is approachable and down to talk. And I think a lot of people express similar things to what you're saying now. And he appreciates the idea of sort of continuing to hold space and have a community for folks who maybe don't have a home to discuss that stuff as much and find it in his show. So I think that's meaningful to him, and he would enjoy hearing it. I don't think he'd be like, yeah, you and everybody else, buddy, where's my free beer? Very nice dude every time I've encountered him. And speaking of shows, we put out a question of the week about maybe some of the most memorable things they've seen at a Bazan or a Pedro show. And we got a shout out here, Kathy Kaz, who said, I've seen him 35 times. Next week, I will see shows 36 and 37. The shows with the orchestra were my favorites. He played with the Passenger String Quartet, which there is an album of those songs, which people should check out if they hadn't heard them. They're like orchestral versions of his songs. where he sings and plays guitar, and there's a 4-piece orchestra behind him. Very cool. Along with my first time in 1999. And that made me think, like, how many times have I seen him? And I tried to like roughly count them out. And I think it's about 20, which I shared with you. And you were like, I have not seen anyone 20 times, which Bazan is my one act I've seen anywhere near that many times, I think. Maybe like Dillinger 4 I've seen somewhere in that range because I saw them so much growing up. But they're my only one at that sort of level. And I'm like, 20 times is a lot, but 37 is a lot. She said 23 years in 10 different cities. Other favorites were the Christmas show in Portland, which, yes, Christmas shows are very special, and Beauty Bar in Vegas in 2010. So anyway, memorable shows. Thanks, Sarah, for adding in. Yeah, maybe you'll get the chance to add your experience, your memorable talking with Dave experience soon, Andrew.
I hope so. I hope if I do get a chance to talk to him, I don't blow it, because
talk about the cum corner. Literally blow it.
No, don't. I can't. I won't. Don't even put that in my mind where I accidentally bring it up.
You're gonna be like,
so
Dave.
So Dave, on our podcast, we have this bit. It's about cum. I gotta go.
You're gonna be so in your head in the pod world where you're gonna be like, Dave, it's been a while since I've been listening to your music, and
it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's like, what is wrong with you?
Hey man, I'm kind of like done for this part of the evening.
Oh man. We got one last voicemail from our boy Tyler, who indicates some less than stellar audio.
Andrew and John, y'all taking a week off. I figured I'd squeeze in a voicemail. I was a little behind. So I'll start with the Pedro line background. I saw Bazan at Cornerstone, Florida. He was opening for the stage before Me Without You went on for the last set of the night. So I became an instant fan of Me Without You after the show. It was my first time seeing him live. But I really didn't I wasn't really into Bazan that much. I saw him again in 2010, once again opening for Me Without You. And I was definitely in a more right place to kind of understand his stuff and get a little more enjoyment out of it. I remember being really impressed by his voice live, especially. I didn't really get into his stuff until Phoenix came out. I really liked that album, and so I once again was seeing him in Me Without You in 2019. So I did, a deep dive, listen to all the albums and stuff, at least the Pedro stuff. So I could, be prepared for the show. He did play Penetration at that show, which you guys were wondering if he plays that live still. Saw him again just a few days ago on April 20th. It was a small crowd, but one of the most attentive crowds I've been a part of. I'll keep it vague as I don't like knowing set lists before seeing someone, so no spoilers. But he played some solo stuff towards the end, and he kept waving the band off as they were coming back on. Because he wanted to play more songs, I think, partially because the crowd seemed to be, respectful and into it, and was kind of feeling the mood. All right, I'm going to go on to episode thoughts now. Feel free to cut me off at any point. If you put this in the episode, I'll even give my thoughts to life now, just in case.
Thanks, Tyler. Yes, that you were correct that the audio was a bit tough to hear, but yes, thank you for the no spoilies for the set lists. I do not like spoilies. So I am, I'm getting excited. Like, so many people have been saying like, oh, I just saw Pedro. So now I'm really excited, that people have been like saying, no one's been like, ugh, God, he's sucked, or like he blew, like if everybody were like, oh man, he's clearly, I don't know. I'm just getting really excited now for these shows.
No, it seems like Streets Are Talking and the buzz is very positive on the shows in this tour so far. Thank you, Tyler, Patreon Punk. Well, thank you to everyone, as always. Please continue sharing your thoughts and ideas, your voicemails, your voice memos, your emails. I gotta say real quick, Danny Stairs, this is the longest stretch I think we've ever had without a Danny Stairs voicemail. So
I know it's almost like indie rock isn't his thing.
It's not his thing. That's fair.
I don't know. This seems like seems, I don't know. He's always been like our number one guy, our very first Patreon punk, our very first voicemail,
It's like a bunch of bullshit to me.
I know,
actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like, kind of like, fuck him, I guess.
Yeah,
Maybe
think he's like better than us. I guess,
this guy over here think he's better than us over here, something over here.
Oh, we
All
love
right,
you,
we're
Danny.
just kidding,
Call in
Danny.
sometime. But yes, thank you, everyone. It's been a while. We love to get thoughtful thoughts from all you folks.
Yes.
Speaking of thoughtful thoughts,
yeah,
got some thoughts of our own to share.
Yes. So, John, we've been doing Winner's Circle lately, where we've been talking about things that we want to move into the Winner's Circle, whether it's something out in the world or something we've experienced personally that we consider a win. But sometimes I don't feel like a winner. Sometimes things are tough.
Yes.
And sometimes things feel less like a winner's circle and more like a loser's lounge. And so today we need to induct somebody into our very first loser's lounge.
Certainly the internal monologue sound that this person has probably been hearing for a long time.
Yeah, so we're doing a shared losers lounge this week because I just didn't feel like we could not talk about Elon Musk and his $44 billion purchase of Twitter.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a more profound, irresponsible, soulless, evil use of money.
Yeah.
Than pouring that level of resource into the cesspit of social media.
Yeah.
And for what
to make
purpose?
It worse.
Unequivocally.
Yeah.
To make it worse. From a guy who claims to be a free speech absolutist who blocks people who call him out on shit.
Yeah.
Look, I block people, but I'm not out here proclaiming to be like better than everybody because I want to have an open forum for Nazis and white supremacists and people like Trump who spread misinformation about the election.
Right.
And I just can't imagine, like, let's just think for a second, $1 billion.
I know. I was going to bring this up. Yeah.
Just a single $1 billion.
Right.
And I think some people don't realize and don't think about the difference between $1 million and $1 billion.
Right.
It's an outrageous difference of that kind of money.
Yeah.
And think about what 44 amazing charitable organizations could have done with $1 billion.
No,
I can't fathom or wrap my head around the motivation other than just being like, I saw some tweet that's like, men will spend really spend $44 billion on buying Twitter and just not go to therapy.
Right.
Or something like that.
It's the ultimate example of that.
Yeah. Like, it's infuriating to me. It's heartbreaking and senseless. And like, how many, we got Jeff Bezos owning the Washington Post. We have Elon Musk owning Twitter. Like, how many more oligarchs do we need in this country?
Right. Yeah. That's the first thought that I had with all this is you've mentioned this a couple times on the pod where you're like, let's break down what $1 billion is. It's like an incomprehensible amount to have $1 billion. And this person has enough billions that $44 billion are just like, I got that laying around that will not really impact me in any way, so that I can buy this social media app and own the libs or whatever. But I'm like, yeah, just apart from like the horrendous, it's like a perfect storm of awful things where it's like this particular person owning this platform at this time, as midterms are heating up and will Trump come back on and all this stuff. And like, apart from all of that, just the fact that like billionaires should not exist, but this person having an extra 44 just to sort of be a toy and to play around with something that you have on the side is just, it's a reflection of the completely broken state of our world that should not be allowed to exist. And yet, could he have a huge impact on the effect of climate change? Could he effectively end world hunger? Could he have a huge impact on poverty?
Oh, he was going to, except he didn't.
He didn't, because Twitter is more fun.
Yeah.
So I just, it's staggering to just think about the implications of a kind of person who has that much wealth and how his whims determine the course of our world and democracy. It's not good.
I just like, what is he? And he's worth like over 200 billion or something like that.
Yeah, I think they said this was like a sixth of his overall net worth.
Yeah, it's evil.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
No single person should have that level of resources. And some people might think, I don't think many people listening to our pod would think this, that I'm sure there are people that think, oh, you're just jealous of his level of wealth and success. And, if you could have, it's like, if I had that level of resources, that would be another example of what's wrong with the country. Like people, that sort of disproportionate allocation of resources just shouldn't be. It just shouldn't happen, because that just is an indication of just gross injustice.
Right. This is a tiny pool of people determining the course of events for the rest of us in humanity.
Yes.
And the more we accept people like that buying, social media platforms that have meant a lot for democracy, or the White House, or what have you, I mean, the more we accept those decisions, which means the less and less accountable they are. And those people start running things without us questioning it anymore. And it's I don't know if you've heard this, Andrew, but the world is a bad place.
Interesting.
Especially lately.
Oh, I hadn't heard.
Yeah, no, a hellscape. But
in that case, I should probably crack one of my other beers then.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's not, it doesn't bode well. Maybe it won't be all things terrifying that it could be, but even if it's not, as we're saying, just the fact that this happened at all is like enough to sort of give one pause about the state of things. So,
like, when did we stop caring about monopolies and oligarchies and competition? Like,
right.
Just how many more things can Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk own before somebody's like, oh, maybe that's too many things?
Right. Yeah, maybe at some point we're like requiring you to do something for the good of the world.
Right. And now it's like, I can't give less of a fuck about the dick measuring contest that's going on between Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, these billionaires like sniping at each other. It's like, oh, God, I just fucking stop. It's so unbearable and so gross and uninteresting. I have no interest in them going after each other and taking pot shots at each other. It's like, this is so childish. You're like the richest men in the world, and just like, all of you need to go to therapy.
Yes.
I can't think of 3 people more right now that need therapy than those 3 dudes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Trump too, but like,
well, sure.
I mean, he's goes without saying, but like these guys, all people who have very public breakdowns of their relationships.
Yeah.
And just like not great things being said and coming out, and it's like, just get off the internet and go talk to somebody and like be better.
Yeah.
Stop. Oh, I would even take stop being so bad. Like you can just like maybe you can work towards being better, but like just stop actively doing harmful shit.
Here. May we have more winners circles in our future than losers lounges. But time will tell.
Time
we'll
will
see
tell.
where we're at with each record.
But until that day.
Yeah, the official sound of late stage capitalism. Having said that,
yeah.
Who wants some more bummers? You take a break and get into Achilles' heel?
Yes. Gonna do that. We're going to cover the final Pedro album for what is it?
Iteration.
The first iteration. So like for 15-year stretch, is
15 years, yeah. We go into David Bazan discography at this point before they finally took the name back for Phoenix.
Yes,
a few years ago. So
yeah, so some people might have thought that at this point in his career, another Pedro album was a foregone conclusion.
Well, I do think that we'll get into that shortly. So keep swinging.
All right. Well, don't start without me.
All right, sounds good. I'll drink more of this poison. What's it called? Yeah. Okay, bye.
Hey, John.
Hey.
You're a fan of punk, right?
I think so.
I think so too. So, have you heard of Small Step Records?
The name is familiar, but tell me more.
Well, Small Step Records is a faith-based DIY record label with bands that are melodic punk, pop punk, easycore, emo, and ska. And they have some new albums and new bands releasing records right now on all streaming services. And you should check them out. Bands like Home Plate, which has like an easycore vibe. So if you're fans of Newfound Glory or 4 Year Strong, you should check them out. You got Grandpa Loves Rhinos, which is definitely got like a pop punk vibe going on.
Andrew, not only that,
ooh,
they are Magpod's first official sponsor.
Oh, really?
Starburst got nothing on these guys. All right, these guys are the real deal. The tagline is "Love God, love others, listen to pop punk." You can go to smallsteprecords.com, check out the cool records and merch and bands they have, and we will be, through their generosity, offering some giveaways in the coming weeks and months on our socials of some of these Small Step Bands records. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Also, John, unlike some record labels, which may have come up over the course of the podcast, the artists on Small Step always keep 100% of the rights and ownership of their music.
Yes.
So any money that goes to Small Step goes directly back into supporting the bands. That is a huge deal when it comes to supporting artists, because oftentimes band puts out a record, they don't own their music, but this is a label with integrity, so you love to see it.
Love to see it. Small Step, check them out.
smallsteprecords.com.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Langston. I am a music producer, a mix engineer, and an avid unicorn enthusiast. And I would like to invite you over to my podcast, 11D Life. On 11D Life, we get to talk to your favorite artists, producers, and creators about what makes them tick. We take deep dives into where they get their juiciest inspirations from and how they keep from being cynical about all of it. We even get to pull back the curtain on my band, 11D7, and share some fun insider tips and tricks for our fellow bandmates and creators out there. So be sure to check out 11D Life right here on the Rock Candy Podcast Network and wherever you get your favorite shows.
We're back.
Yeah, we are.
Talking Pedro. talking Achilles Heel.
Yes. Achilles Heel, released May 25th, 2004 on Jade Tree. Is this you didn't hear this one?
I did
when
not.
It came out.
I did not. No.
Is this your first time processing this album?
It is.
All right. Well, I'm very curious to get into it with you. I have some sense of some portions of it and how it's affected you. But I love this album. I remember getting it in my campus mail post office box
Sure.
at the end of my junior year of college. Came out just after it ended, being extremely pumped for it. And I remember at the time thinking it wasn't quite at the Control Winners punky leaning thing that I had been into. But that I liked that it was getting weirder and synthier. It kind of got more adventurous with this record. And even if it wasn't exactly as in line with my vibe as maybe Control and Winners were, I liked that he was going to some interesting places. The synth lines are front and center now. A lot of the hooks on this record are built around them, which I love. I think it sounds great. I think it's real adventurous producing and songwriting. And it was also the first, as far as I know, album of his to chart. Got to number 24 on Billboard's top independent albums and number 26 on its top Heat Seekers chart. And it got pretty good reviews. I think it was a well-liked album, if maybe not the sort of classic that a lot of people consider Control to be. But yeah, as you said, this is the sort of final form of Pedro 1.0. T.W. Walsh was really the only other kind of permanent, longer-term member who is all over this record, co-wrote some songs with Bazan, and continues to remain involved with him in a lot of ways. But this was the last record they made together, and the dissolution of that group, him and Tim Walsh, was sort of what prompted him to go solo, along with a few other things. But T. William Walsh also mixed and mastered Curse Your Branches. They play in the band Low Tom together, who I don't think we've talked about much so far this season, but that's Bazan, Walsh, Jason Martin, and Trey Many of Velour 100 and Starflyer, which we'll get into both of those. But they've got a couple records out that are interesting as well. Pretty just kind of straight ahead, electric guitar driven rock, but very enjoyable. This record, Bazan on vocals, guitar, bass, synths, percussion, drums, T.W. Walsh on guitar, bass, drums, synths. James McAllister, who played with Sufjan a lot and still does on percussion, drums, and synths. Engineered by Bazan and Walsh. Like I said, I think it sounds great. And mixed by Chris Colbert, who will come up again because he has engineered or worked on Joe Christmas, Marilla's Forest, Starflyer, Bon Voyage, Michael Knott, Kevin Max, Damien Jurado. This dude has done a lot. I have always been a big fan of this record. It is a little, it doesn't have the sort of concept album thing that Winners or Control does. And it doesn't have the sort of sentimentality that It's Hard to Find a Friend does for me, but it occupies this unique space among his discography before he started getting kind of a lot weirder with Bazan solo stuff. And I always took the title of the album, Achilles Heel, to sort of be like about his connection to his faith or to the Christian world, like that being his Achilles heel, his weakness sort of being like his faith or his connection to that. I don't know. I could be off there, but I get the sense that his faith is sort of hanging by a thread at this point on this album, which he kind of acknowledges in a couple ways throughout. But that's how I thought about it. I don't know. Did you take it any specific way?
If you look at the artwork, obviously somebody could be like, oh, it's a lion, it's Pedro the lion, but I don't know. It could also be,
if you unfolded it, that he was shot, the lion had been killed, and there's somebody pointing a gun at him, and then the CD itself was like a bullet hole in the lion with blood coming out of it. So
okay,
perhaps some metaphor there, perhaps a precursor to Pedro dying. I don't know.
Also fair. I don't know. Yeah, as somebody who didn't have the any of the artwork itself, but
yeah,
I will say this, that one noteworthy difference is coming from Control to this record. The drums are pulled back and are very much more restrained and simplified. And I don't know if that's because Bazan is not doing much of the drumming this time around, or because he's got a bunch of other people filling in on drums too, or what, or if he just like wanted to go a completely different direction. But I do find myself missing some of not that every album needs to be wild drums, but missing it a bit,
not constant crash cymbal land like on Control.
No,
I agree. I think that he's a capable drummer and can crank it up when he wants to and pull it back when he wants to. And I think he never quite again had it at the level that he was doing the boom baps on Control for. And I do kind of miss that, but I do think it's just it's different sound with this project. I will say T.W. Walsh was usually the drummer live in this era, so perhaps he was playing less, but I think I don't know. I think they kind of share things. He sort of plays everything, so who knows? It is sort of a trade-off in sound, and again, in sort of favor of the synths, which would become increasingly the focus of a lot of his sound until the reiteration of Pedro rising from the ashes like a phoenix. Also wanted to mention Jessica Hopper, who is a Chicago music critic. I love her stuff. She is a longtime writer, and she did PR for Pedro on this record. And I remember that because a few years later, she did a cover story for the Chicago Reader on Bazan and sort of his evolution. That was around the time of Curse Your Branches, and that story played a sort of prominent piece in sort of the introduction of Bazan to the music world and this idea of it being a breakup record with God. So anyway, she is an interesting person. It's interesting that she was doing PR with him at this point. I've got a lot of, like I said to you off pod, my top three were pretty evident to me going in, and I've got a lot to say about those songs in particular, and a fair amount about some other songs and not that much about others, but I've got some things to say, a lot of things to say about some of these. So should we dive in?
Yeah, I do want to say one quick thing, because I did it again, John. Oops. I did it again. I read the Pitchfork Achilles heel review.
Don't do it, man.
and here's the thing, like, this guy started the review off by saying that he said that he artfully conceived a righteous corrective of all the bum raps David Bazan has received over the years, both from this esteemed institution and others. And basically saying, like, he wanted this album to, like, prove everyone wrong. And then he, like, goes on to say, then I heard the album. But
boo.
So here's what I'm gonna say about, I just think so many of the people that seem to review Bazan can't get out of their heads a faith with fucking nuance.
Well, he has a neck beard, Andrew. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh shit, you're right. Oh, never mind. This album sucks.
Yeah, 4.1.
The frustrating thing is, like, somebody can be a person of faith and have a conflicting sense of what they think about their faith. And I just feel like I wanted to say that before we get into the record, because, like, I'm a person that grew up Christian, had a lot of this tension that Bazan talks about in much of his discography. And I'm no longer a Christian, Bazan's no longer a Christian, but I still hear these songs, and I hear the tension. He lives in the tension, which is what some of these songs specifically are talking about.
Yes.
And these people who either aren't Christian or are anti-Christian don't understand a faith that isn't black and white.
Right.
And that's what's so frustrating to me, that they can't, for people that do music reviews that have their ear tuned to nuance, this nuance is just completely lost on them, and it's very frustrating to me.
Yeah. I don't know if their central hangup is the Christian thing and they could just never get over that. If anything, I would think something like this would be interesting to them, because it's a person basically being like, I don't really believe a lot of the time, and it's hard for me to believe. I would think that they would be like, that's a refreshing, new way to approach this material, but whatever. I will say, I mean, Pitchfork aside, it looks like this album got a 71 on Metacritic, which is like, a compilation of reviews. So that indicates generally favorable reviews, which is my memory of how the album was received, where it wasn't really making like top 10 lists, but I think pretty warmly received on the whole, which is kind of how I felt about it as well. So, but yes, often confounding to secular critics over the years.
Yep. All right. Well, then, enough of that. Let us get into the actual music.
Let's do it.
Bands with managers. This is my number 3.
My number 3 as well.
Yes.
I love this song.
That falsetto, you cannot deny it.
Yeah.
There's no denying that falsetto, and the chord progression too is.
Yeah.
This is like, to me, this song feels quintessential Pedro, slow core, like a very Pedro chord progression, and I'm super into it.
Yeah, I really feel like this is the album where he starts to push himself vocally, and some folks were talking about seeing him live in sort of later 2000s being like, oh wow, actually this guy has like pipes, and like he always sang well, but he really starts to use his register and use that falsetto a lot and sing out, and like, yeah, this just really starts to show that off. This is another one for me that, like I mentioned with Second Best, where it really kind of came alive for me when I saw it live. Like I liked it on the record, but something sort of unlocked, especially when I saw them perform it as the Undertow Orchestra, which was this thing that Undertow Music, which is the management company that Bazan is under, he toured with Vic Chestnut and Mark Eitzel of American Music Club and Will Johnson from Centromatic, and they sort of played each other's songs. But there was something about when they did that song in slightly different interpretations from the guitar players, but that sort of crescendo of guitar parts, especially that comes in with the end, just sort of like, oh wait, the song is sort of like blowing my mind a little bit. And I think, as you said, it's not unlike other Pedro songs in its sort of chord progression and melody and stuff, but it's like there's weird spacey keyboards going off in the background.
Yes.
As it sort of reaches its heights, and like, I don't know, the climax is sort of what makes it for me. It's like these building guitars, the
Usually
synths are
does,
going
bro.
crazy. It's like I'm seeing
It's like
Jesus.
He's welcoming you to the promised land. But yeah, the synths are just going wild, and I think that sounds sort of emulating for me this like spinning or like dizziness of he's talking about the van rolling over. Yeah.
And just sort of giving into that idea. So if we could maybe hear that at like 146 when it really starts to kind of go to the next level. I think that's so cool.
T. William Walsh getting that call out in the song.
That's right. I mean, he's sort of, I always took this as being like, you know, so he's saying he's sort of accepting his role within the musical landscape is how I took it. Like compared to the success of these bands with messy hair and smooth white faces who maybe aren't driving themselves around on tour in vans anymore. He says vans with 15 passengers are rolling over, but I trust T. William Walsh. I'm not afraid to die. The idea is sort of like making peace with like, you know, that can happen, but I'm submitting to that. I'm a touring musician. My band is with this guy. I trust this guy. We're in this thing together. And I don't know, there's something sort of beautiful about like, as I said, picturing this van rolling over, he's giving into that idea. It's sort of this euphoric feeling. And he's like, yeah, I could die in this van, but I like this guy and this is our band and that's where I'm at in life. And I should say too, that part I mentioned last week on the show, the song June 18th, 1976, which is a beautiful song of his. Often live, when they get to that part, he sings speeding toward the ground, which is a part of that song. And he sort of melds them together in a really cool way. So I love the song.
Yes. And I think we've talked about this a lot over these last 4 seasons, but I think this might be our very first "It Won't Be All Right" song that we've discussed.
Right. Yeah. Right.
We've talked at length that every punk band in history has a song about how everything's going to be all right. But of course, with Pedro, that it won't be all right.
Yeah, this is the maybe distinction between punk seasons and an indie season.
It won't be all right.
Yeah, I think, and how I take that is almost like he's all right with it. Maybe not going to be all right. You know what I mean? Like accepting, like, hey, maybe we're not going to be a huge breakthrough band. Maybe I'm going to die in a car crash on tour, but like, that's okay. Like submitting to the peace of like, maybe everything's not going to be perfect. I don't know. I find it like moving in that way, but I could be overreading it.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair read, that he's not going to, he's saying, look, bands with managers who are glossy and got their shit together, they're going to be all right.
Right.
We're driving our shit around and we're probably going to be rolling over. So it's
right. Yeah.
It probably won't be. It might be, but maybe not.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing for someone at that stage in their career to sort of make peace with, is like, if I was going to make it big, it probably would have happened by now. So what does it mean to sort of be a professional touring musician? It means choosing people that I want to be around and making the best of it and being at peace with that. I don't know. I think I like it a lot.
Yeah. Foregone conclusions.
Talk
This is my number 2.
It's my number 2 as well. We might have the same top 3 this time.
Yes. Oh shit.
It might happen.
Is it happening? John, I don't what would happen if we had the exact same top 3 on a Pedro record? Was this like black hole open up and the universe like collapse in on itself or something?
I think Bazan shows up in a Zoom window and he's like, "Hey guys, I heard you did it."
Again, another perfect impression of David Bazan.
Yeah, the song rules. I mean, musically, like I like that country twang lane that Pedro goes in at times. That tambourine in the chorus really propels it for me, kind of swings along. But I think a lot of what resonates about it for both of us, I'm guessing, is this, what he's talking about is this like inability to talk to each other, talking past each other all the time. And kind of like what you're saying with like these music critics and folks like that, where it's like, you can assume what this guy is and he can assume what you are. You and I are nothing more than foregone conclusions, but maybe that's not the way to actually, sort through things. We can think of each other as these absolutes without actually getting to know each other, our context, our nuances, as you're saying, and, saying, hey, maybe we can actually have a real conversation about this where it's more nuanced and it's not as easy as giving like a pat answer on stage or whatever.
I also like whether or not what perspective he's taking this first verse, if he's taking it from a view of someone else or from his own perspective. I think it can both be kind of interesting. If he's saying from his own view, being like, I don't want to believe a lot of this stuff is true,
right?
Like he could be talking about the Bible, or he could be talking about like parts of Christianity he doesn't want to believe to be true, but he could be persuaded. Or it could be from the perspective of somebody who doesn't believe, and a conversation with them, saying them being open to having the discussion. But I do think that's an interesting way for, like, if we could all have this openness to just listening to each other. But I do think the line is, as if some new information were possible to comprehend or introduce. Like, we're going to have this conversation about the Lord, but nothing you're going to tell me is going to be new. Like, it's like if somebody's like, I don't know if you know this, but the wage for the wages of sin is death, and you need to accept the Lord. It's like, oh my God, really?
Might have heard this before.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard that. I need to accept the Lord.
Right. Yeah. I see this song and the next one as being very linked.
Yes.
And I think if I understand it correctly, the conversation he's having here is with a certain type of Christian who's frustrated with maybe the public face that Dave is giving to Christianity at that moment. And then the next song is somebody maybe who's not a Christian, and Dave having a conversation with them and being like, well, here's why it's useful to me at this moment. That's how I've always seen it. And, what I appreciate, like you're saying, is it's sort of acknowledging in this song that, like, that conversation that they have, that's probably good to do, still isn't likely to change either of their minds. You know what I mean? It's like this bleeds thematically into the next song too, where it's like he's at the stage of Q&As. Does anybody have any questions at this point in the show? And people saying, are you a Christian? And like this relationship that he has of fans asking questions and him trying to answer, and fans asking him to articulate his faith were like such a staple of the Pedro experience at this point, that I think he's trying to address that tension in these songs. So as you said, he's had other songs where he's like, I would have an easier time if I saw some proof. That's sort of an ongoing theme, and he doesn't get that, but it's like making sense of what it means to have faith even without that. And then also being like, but let's acknowledge we're still not going to change each other's minds. I think what I want to read this next part because it's what we say to close out our show.
Yes.
And I like the chord progression that comes in with this part too. But, he says, you were too busy steering the conversation toward the Lord to hear the voice of the Spirit begging you to shut the fuck up. You thought it must be the devil trying to make you go astray. Besides, it could not have been the Lord because you don't believe he talks that way. I remember hearing that on the first time I listened through the song and loving that so much that maybe like this person who's convinced of God being a certain way,
right,
and convinced that they're representing God through this form of evangelizing is what God wants, then maybe the Spirit's saying to them, hey, shut the fuck up. Like, this actually isn't helping people see the gospel.
Right.
And instead of taking stock of that, convincing themselves that, no, actually, this must be Satan telling me this. This is not God. And just like, that's such a profound and succinct way of being like, perhaps you're off in your certainty about things, and maybe make room for the Spirit to tell you something else, and maybe the Spirit sounds different from how you imagine the box that you've put the Spirit into. You know what I mean? So
right.
I love that part so much.
Yes, and yet we're still so tightly wound around our foregone conclusions.
Yeah.
Another great line.
Yeah, well said.
Said. This guy, Dave Bazan. I've heard Streets Are Talking, kind of a good lyricist.
Yeah, that's true.
The Fleecing. And
number one,
baby.
Yeah, we did it, Joe.
We did it, Joe.
When's the last time we had the same top three?
It's
been a while.
I feel like it's the number of times it's happened is on one hand, and probably only like a couple times, and it maybe was, I don't know. It's been where I have so much to say about this
me
song.
too, man. Me too.
And this is one of the songs on this album that makes me very emotional. But I just want to, this is so Foregone Conclusions and The Fleecing were two songs that the person from Pitchfork took issue with because he was saying that, you know, he says, while Bazan nastily skewers the kind of Bible beaters he's not in Foregone Conclusions, he turns in an unbelievably limp defense of faith just one track later. The Fleecing appears to be a form of response to his hipster detractors, but crumples under vague answers and a flimsy sheep metaphor, ultimately coming off as preachy as people blindly expect Bazan to be. Like, this could not be more incorrect in just about every conceivable, like, preachy. Like, I can't think of an artist who would have called themselves a Christian being less preachy than Bazan. Like, from album 1, he was being pulled from Christian bookstores and Christian
Right.
record stores.
Yeah.
As somebody who did not follow his career closely, I imagine late teens and early 20s Andrew would have been just infuriated still by these. And I can't imagine, of course, as Bazan, who as somebody who, like, I assume Dave Bazan is an Enneagram 4, to be so not understood would probably be so painfully frustrating, to be like, no, you're missing, which is why I think he's so like, ask me a question. What do you want to know? And then but these people still don't fucking get it. It's just okay. I just wanted to call this out and be like, I like how you pointed out how these songs are kind of linked, that they're different conversations with different people, but he's, again, the nuance. He's like, yeah, I doubt it, but I still believe it. But this is not preachy. This is it's so frustrating to me.
I guess I could see the idea of like, okay, this guy has a song sort of answering to his detractors, and the answer is sort of like, look, I'll tell you why I believe it, and being like, oh, that's preachy. But to me, it's like the posture he takes is like, let's have a conversation, and in that conversation I'll reveal to you, like, most of the time I don't feel anything. I don't feel a connection to God, and that doesn't feel preachy to me. That feels like, hey, look, I have these beliefs, but like, I struggle with them, and they're not absolute, which feels, again, the opposite of preachy.
Right.
Yes, I remember reading, I think, an interview where he was saying, like, basically on the first tour, like early on, people were already being like, oh, I love how this song is about this, or like, you meant this in this song, and he'd get really pissed off because he's like, that's not at all what I meant, and I like constructed it this way specifically. And then he's like, but pretty quickly I learned to just be like, people are always going to interpret it the way they're going to interpret it, and I have to sort of be at peace with that, and sometimes it's even interesting. But yes, I think it was sort of difficult for him to get to that place. I'm going to go ahead and read all of the lyrics as we go through this, because I have so much to say and to ask about each section. So fleecing means like the shearing of sheep's wool,
right?
But it also means getting swindled, like if you got fleeced.
Yes.
And I guess that's how I always thought about that, is like, he isn't sure if he is a sheep feeding in the pasture of the Lord and accepting being fleeced, in terms of like, that's what it means to believe, or if he's actually being fleeced by the whole idea of belief. And I think the story may come from this story in the book of Judges, where Gideon asks God to like confirm God's will by laying out a fleece on the ground, and says like, make the fleece dewy in the morning and the ground dry, and then I'll know that it's your will. And that's what happens. So I don't know if by referencing that, Bazan is saying like, he doesn't have that same evidence that Gideon did, but he believes it anyway. Even if it's conditional belief, or it's barely there, which again, we're kind of back to like Secret of the Easy Yoke territory, where he's just like, honestly being like, a lot of the time I don't feel you at all. And
right.
So yeah, he starts the song, deep green hills whose shoulders fade into thick gray, tall, wet grass, whose flesh makes fools of grazing sheep, whose fleecing makes a fool of me. It's so like beautiful and lush. Like, that's such cool prose. I love this. Deep green hills is how it starts, and thick gray and tall, wet grass. It's like an English class where you're like, remember to put in details. And like, I don't know, I still kind of can't make sense totally of that metaphor, how he phrases it, but the way that those like low harmonies come in,
oh god, so rich. Do you know who it makes me think of? Stephen Merritt from the Magnetic Fields.
Yeah, totally. That's a good comparison. This is not unlike Magnetic Fields song in some ways. But yeah, so I'm already just like, whoa, we're in a weird place. I mean, I love that. I love the melody of the song throughout. That synth line in the opening is perfect.
Yeah.
I love the guitar sound immediately. I think the drums are doing some cool fills on this song. And how it kind of quiets down for the verses and then those low harmonies come in. But I've never totally understood. I think what he's saying is like the sheep's fleecing makes a fool of him, whether that means he's made a fool by expressing his faith and like regretting how he does that, or if God isn't real, then he's made a fool by expressing that belief or having that belief. Or is it like in the way that Gideon sort of was able to get some hard evidence that makes Bazan a fool for not believing, you know, Gideon gets that evidence and is like, oh, that's sort of made a fool out of my doubt. Is that what Bazan's saying? So maybe there's that, but I'm like, why are the sheep, why does the flesh of the grass make fools out of the sheep? I don't know. What were you gonna say?
As you were talking about Gideon and getting the God's will proof of, I guess, whatever God's will was, also made me think about, as we just had Easter just passed, and and I always feel like Thomas got a bad rap, and people just calling him Doubting Thomas, and how he was only asking for the same level of proof that everybody else got. That it's like everybody else got to see the Lord and he revealed himself, and Thomas is like, you guys are just being like, dude, this guy's back from the dead. He's like, I don't know, I'm not gonna believe this. I'm gonna need
my finger in this guy.
I'm gonna need to get a little bit more evidence. And then so now he's become an example for the last 2,000 years. Like, you gotta, blessed are those who don't see and still believe. And it's like, all right, but that's not really fair. So all these people are getting their evidence. I don't know. Am I a fool for like not asking for more, or like believing it and not having it because other people have it? It would seem, at least in the Bible. Maybe that's what he's saying. Like, I'm a fool because I don't have any reason.
I still don't quite get the grass's flesh makes fools of grazing sheep. And then the sheep's fleecing makes a fool of him. Unless you're sort of going with the whole idea of like sheep, calling blind followers without critical thinking sheep. That like they are made fools because they're just sort of cool to chill and eat the grass and go with the flow.
Maybe the sheep just hanging around in the wet grass, just chewing and eating their shit and just hanging out, and they're just whatever. They're fine to just hang out on those thick gray wet hills.
That sounded like weirdly sexual for some reason just now.
Hey, I'm just reading his words.
I know, I love it. They're so evocative immediately. Just from those words.
Those hills are so deep and thick and wet.
How tall is that grass?
Let me see that flesh.
So just immediately that language and the voice he's using for the harmonies and the moogie sound of this, I'm just like, we are in a cool place here. Okay, so the chorus: who shall I blame for this sweet and heavy trouble, for every stupid struggle? I don't know. I could buy you a drink. I could tell you all about it. I could tell you why I doubt it and why I still believe. I feel like there's so much there to unpack to. Like, we're doing a dissertation on the song, but I love the idea of calling faith essentially sweet and heavy trouble, where it's like, and he's looking to blame someone for it.
I know.
It is such a good way. It's a sweet trouble because he appreciates the faith that he has and the richness of it, but it is a heavy one, and he doesn't quite know how to process it. And every stupid struggle that he has as a result of his faith, or trying to live out his faith, or trying to make sense of the world. I just think it's such a good way to sort of name that and process that. And then he's like, well, listen, again, we're back to kind of like how he approached the conversation in Foregone Conclusions. Like, I could buy you a drink. I could tell you all about it. He's like, if someone says like, what do you believe, or why do you believe in God, or whatever, he's like, I don't think whatever 10-second answer I could give here is going to do justice to the idea of why I believe what I do. Like, we could talk about it and actually talk through it, and why I have doubts about it, but ultimately why I still believe. So I love that. But then it's the next part, the second verse.
Yeah, this is the part that pushes it over for me.
Yes.
Because I'm just like, this guy's a 4. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind that Dave
That's
and
what
I
should ask him.
1,000%.
You know about the Enneagram, bro?
No, bro, you want Enneagram 4, bro? You want to go like hug and cry or something?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
He says, so we could have a drink. I could tell you about it. And then he moves into, but I can't say it like I sing it. And I can't sing it like I think it. And I can't think it like I feel it. And I don't feel a thing. Oh no, I don't feel it. It's just like, oh my God, every line hits. Where he's like, hey, look, we can go talk about this. And that's the correct way to sort of talk about our faith and our beliefs. But just a warning, like, I'm not going to be as eloquent in this conversation over beers as I am with these songs that I make. And the songs don't turn out as eloquent as they are in my brain when I'm imagining them. And I can't even really articulate them in my brain in the way that I feel this.
Yes.
And here's where my faith is at. I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
So like, and he's lamenting that.
Yes.
He's acknowledging that that's part of it. And he's like, okay with that. But also that like part of faith means sometimes I don't feel anything. And in this moment, I don't feel a thing.
Right.
So he's like, even if we had this conversation where I'm not going to say it as well as my songs say it, my songs don't say it as well as I feel my faith, the bottom line is like, I don't feel anything. So I'm not going to be able to say anything better than like, look, I can't express it because I don't even feel something that makes me want to believe right now. I just think that's so honest and powerful. And again, gave people permission, I think, who are hearing this to be like, oh, you can say that, like, I don't feel a thing about God, and that's okay. And he's still not saying, at least at this point in his life, in his discography, that not feeling anything necessitates not having any belief, or belief in God, at least. And like that at that point, he's like, I don't feel that all the time, but that doesn't mean that I don't have those beliefs still. I don't know. I find that very meaningful.
God, I mean, me too. I recently posted something on Instagram, the line from a Harry Potter book where Dumbledore introduces the pensieve and how he's like that he has so many thoughts and memories, filling up his mind, and that he finds it helpful to like put some of them into the pensieve. And then I hear this song and I'm like, when you think about how you think something and how you feel something and how you like write something down, for somebody like me too, who's like, I feel, I mean, you and I are both
highly sensitive
person. And highly sensitive people feel their emotions and things and just like an extremely profound and deep way. So like when I feel something, an emotion, it is hard for me to convey necessarily to somebody who isn't highly sensitive why something is just so overwhelming. And then to get to the end of the song where he says, we'd have more drinks, we would speak of so many things, but I don't know you and you don't know me.
Right.
These people who are like, you Christian, bro? And then it's like, well, we could talk about this, but like, I'm gonna have a hard time explaining this, and you don't really know me. And also, I don't know you, and are you a safe person to discuss this with? Can I trust you with all of this? And if I unload all of this complexity of what I'm feeling, are you going to like hear it and see it?
Right.
And
again, he's kind of continuing that theme of the last song where it's like, we could get into all this if we actually had the time to sit down and go through complicated things, but we don't actually know each other. So reducing these giant concepts to unnuanced positions without that context isn't actually helpful for a public discourse on faith or and what it means to live out that faith,
because you have your foregone conclusions.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So just to close out, just before the part you just referenced, he says, he again brings back, I could buy you a drink, I could tell you all about it, I could tell you why I doubt it, and why I still believe it, and why I need it, and what the Pharisees don't see. We'd have more drinks, we'd speak of so many things, but I know you don't, you know me. And then, as Cortland Coffee referenced when he was on the show,
yes,
Bazan continues to play the song after, publicly expressing that he no longer has faith in God, and he changes why I still believe it and why I need it to why I don't believe it and why I grieve it, and changes and what the Pharisees don't see to how I was blind but now I see. And that's not that's an ongoing theme of him, of sort of using this evangelical language to describe his deconversion, to say the blindness was being it was having the kind of faith that didn't allow for sort of critical thinking, and the being able to see is coming away from faith. And I think it's really cool that he continues to play these songs and work through them in new ways, and it's still just as meaningful. Those changes are still really powerful to me. But yeah, I love the song. I love it as it was written when it came out. I love the updated lyrics, and I love that Mogi synth line that comes in, which I would like to hear a little bit of. That's at like 2:20. I just think it sounds so cool.
Hell yes.
Rules.
Yeah.
So good, man.
We didn't even get to hear the part that we were just discussing for like 45 minutes, but
that's true.
I feel like we need to hear a little bit of that.
Sure, yeah.
But I can't say it like I sing it, and I can't sing it like I think it, and I can't think it like I feel it, and I don't feel a thing. Oh no, I don't feel it.
Yeah.
All right. So we maybe did that out of order, but
Yes.
we basically heard most of the song. It rules. Our shared number one of my favorite Pedro songs of all time. What a good song.
Great song. All right, so 3 songs in.
Yeah. I will not spend as long on these other songs, I promise.
No, but there are some that I do want to talk about, but those were the big ones.
Yeah.
All right, discretion. This is an interesting topical choice. Do you know?
I was gonna say, you didn't think we'd get out of a Pedro album without a murder song, did you?
Basically, a son wants to kill his farmer dad, but then
twist
kills the asshole son.
Yeah. So I don't think it's based on, I think the dude loves a murder story and wanting to tell one.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a guy, presumably, I mean, he mentions the farmer's sweet young wife, and I don't know if it's this guy's an asshole, as it said. He hires a hitman to kill his dad, who's a farmer, and perhaps to be with the wife. I don't know. But then the hitman decides, actually, I'm going to kill the asshole son, and then books it out of there in his van, weighing his most recent deviation from the plan, which feels, again, the whole thing is kind of like this, Flannery O'Connor, somebody we brought up.
Yeah.
It feels very much like that kind of story where these twists and turns, and it's sort of a morality tale, but it's about awful things. I don't know. I've always liked the song. I love that whistly high keyboard part that comes in throughout. Cool guitar and bass parts, I think. Just a cool vibe. I like how it sort of vacillates between being chilled out and then aggressive and panicky, which like fits the storytelling of the song.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fun. I don't have much to say about it, but I've always liked it.
Yeah. And also the verse 4, hired to hit the farmer by the farmer's asshole son. He had not yet decided between poison or a gun when suddenly he realized he would not use either one.
Right.
Maybe this idea that like the fact that his son is dead would be, enough.
Yeah. I've heard that too. What I always thought was that he realized he wasn't going to use either one on the father. Like, instead, I'm just going to kill the son because this guy sucks. That's what I always took it as.
Right.
But maybe
right. That
this would. Are you saying like this would kill the dad because through his grief or whatever?
Metaphorically kill the dad.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it took me a while to piece together sort of what I thought was actually happening.
Yeah.
And by the time I got to I think the hitman realizes halfway through this job that he's like, I should kill this guy instead because it doesn't seem like I should kill this farmer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a, cool little twists of fate and stuff.
Yeah. Arizona.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love all those mogies. I like this one. I don't know.
It's only okay.
It's probably my least favorite on the album.
It's my least favorite on the album. The metaphors are a bit heavy-handed,
little clunky. I mean, not clunky, but yeah, a little obvious.
It's like, okay, yes, there's a love triangle or something. Arizona, California, New Mexico are three different people, but then it transitions into a secondary metaphor with rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
And so like hearing this sort of dramatic singing of paper. Like it just seems a little it just seems like a little over the top.
Yeah. No, I get
and
that.
it just feels a little, it kind of feels a little silly. So yeah.
I think I remember him playing it live in this era, and somebody asked, John Potter style, like, what is this song about?
Is this a metaphor?
Is this a metaphor? Something like that. And he was like, yeah, it's a love triangle represented by these big Western states, because I guess that's what does it for Dave, or something like that. Where he was like basically admitting, like, yeah, it's kind of a weird analogy. I don't know. I will say, but my favorite part is when he's like, when those harmonies come in, it's like rock crushes, scissors. I don't know. It's I like it fine. I like every song on this album, but I would say it's not a standout for me.
Yeah. That's all I gotta say about it.
Yep.
But this song, though, this is very interesting
stuff.
Keep swinging.
You got drunk more so than you'd ever been. Hailed a cab, but passed out cold before you told the driver where to go. And so he drove you around Chicago.
Woo!
You woke up sicker than you'd ever been. You threw up and shit the bed, and there was no one there to clean you up. And the room was spinning all around. Make a fist and take a deep breath. Close your eyes and count to 10. Just keep swinging till you're over it. The mess you left had got you.
God, this song is so cool.
It is.
I love. There's like a Paul McCartney Beatles-esque sort of
Yes.
bass thing going on
Yep.
that I'm so into.
I had the exact same thing in my notes. I said Dave would always say over the years that the Beatles were a huge influence for him. And I remember, like, I didn't really always hear that. But then when I heard this song for the first time, I was like, there we go. It's like kind of Sgt. Peppersy vibes here. That bass line crushes. You're right. It is kind of a Paul McCartney. It's just like doing its complete own thing. I mean, this whole song, what makes it Beatlesy is like, it's weird. It's like the weirdest thing he's ever done at this point, sort of.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's like, it's very sort of adventurous. These 3-part harmonies, which he's never done. The sound and the song structure fit this sort of dizzying, confused vibe of like getting too drunk and it being sort of a bad scene.
A very different style of drunk song.
Right, than like the ones on Winners or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should say this one was co-written by T.W. Walsh, the first of 2 songs with the credit by him on this record, which is unusual for Dave. And it sounds different. And Casey Faubert, who we talked about last week, is on guitar on this song. And I think the guitar rules, this kind of crunchy thing going on throughout. But yeah, I think the sound reflects the state that he's in. And we're at a place now where, as you said, we're sort of wondering how blurry is the line between, is this a fabricated tale or is this an actual Dave story?
Right.
And as he's talked about, this was sort of the beginning of his drinking getting really rough in his actual life. And I would expect that this is probably a true story. Specifics. He's talking about being in Chicago.
Right.
He shits the bed at a hotel, reflecting the sort of the bad place he's in, but he makes himself or the character look bad. He says, he shits the bed and he says, she is a maid. I guess that's what she gets paid for. And it's like, oh, that's
it's a bad look.
Right. So I think he's just kind of saying like, look, I'm garbage. Like, I think that's sort of what the vibe is here. I'm not in a good way right now, and make a fist and make a deep breath, close your eyes. These are all things to sort of like center yourself when you're super drunk. I remember like being in college and getting the spins and putting one foot on the floor and just like feeling the room spin around, and the song like captures that. It just feels awful. And I don't know. I think it's really cool though. It's such a unique song for him that there's this cool keyboard part that comes in for the final chorus, and that morphs into like almost like an alarm sound that runs through the outro, where it's like it's almost like to signal that he's like in a state of emergency or yeah. Yeah. So cool. I will say the drums also he is kind of going off on this one, whoever it is, in a way that maybe some of these songs aren't. So yeah, I don't know. Into it. It's a weird one, man.
It's a weird one. I enjoy a little weird Bazan.
Me too. He usually, as somebody Robert maybe alluded to, plays bass live when he's got a band, which is cool.
Yes.
And I'm always just I find it hard to play and sing at the same time unless what I'm doing on the guitar bass is like pretty much matching, the rhythm of whatever I'm singing.
Right.
And so the idea that I remember him playing this live for the first time, just busting that bass line out, the do 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 do, as he's singing a melody that's totally different, and just being impressed. You know what I mean? I know that's like not that big a deal for being a professional musician, but I'm just like, that's the kind of thing a bass player would like rock out on in the corner to themselves, but he's like the front man laying down that bass line. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's the same thing with like a drummer where you're just like,
yeah,
all of your limbs very independently doing things and like boom, 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 and like doing that sick bass line and then singing and then doing harmonies and like trying to track with the drums.
Yeah. I don't get it.
There's a lot going on. So kudos to him for pulling it off.
Indeed.
Here's another bummer song, Transcontinental.
Engine severs lower legs. I feel my bruised heart beating. The spinal cord remains intact. Still sending and receiving. Lying back on shoulder blades. The cargo rushing past. Missing limbs beneath the cars. Twitching on the tracks. Click clack, now handicap. No one damn transcontinental.
What a cool sound.
It is really cool. This is definitely one of the like breakout songs of the album. It became a real live staple. He's played it in a lot of different versions. I guess I sort of think about it as like, not that it's the same, but sort of the Big Trucks vibe, where it's like, obviously it's a depressing song, but it's like a little more upbeat musically. And maybe that's why it sort of resonates with people. It's never been like, I really like it, to be clear. I think it's great, but it hasn't been, I think a lot of people would probably name this in their top 3 for sure. And it just hasn't been at that level for me. But I think, to your point, like, it's similar to me to early Pedro in that it's like, it works super well as just like a stripped down acoustic song. Like, it's just got good bones as a melody. Yeah. It's catchy. And it's driven by that acoustic guitar. I don't know. I think the drums sound like a train going over the railroad tracks throughout, which is cool. They're like, dun, 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 dun. It's a different sound, but it's reminiscent of some early Pedro, also in the sense that it's like an obviously depressing story about a guy whose legs are cut off by a train.
Yep.
And he basically remembers tales of other people in similar situations. He calls them tales of bravery, people who got out, but he can't muster the strength to get out of it. So he says, the luxury of having been spared the hard part, you'd think would be enough for me to pull this off, but I'm left to bleed to death. Now all the man I've ever known, which feels not dissimilar to me to like, I just can't lick this, it's like,
Yeah.
look, I'm giving in to this and I can't really do anything about it. And
Yeah.
I think this one may be based on some kind of true story. I don't know. I don't remember him ever really explaining it, but obviously imagining what might be going through the head of somebody who's got caught on the tracks and got your legs cut off and just dying there. So yeah, certainly a bummer.
Yeah, about as much of a bummer as a torso on the train tracks can be.
Right. Yes. Pretty rough. I will say like those kind of flute sounding keys throughout are really cool. I like those a lot. Yeah, musically really fun. I don't know. I think it's one that's made the cut at a lot of shows because it's sort of so easily transposed. So like you could just do this solo with the guitar very easily, or the string version again is cool, full band version is cool. So
yeah,
good melody.
Yeah, I guess it makes me also think of Aaron Ralston, that
sure
guy who got his arm,
chopped his arm off. Yeah,
chopped his own arm off when it got caught in like a boulder or something.
He was one of the tales of bravery who
that's
decided
true.
He had to figure out a way. I would be like this railroad guy. I'd just be like, oh, I'm dead now.
It's like I just like hope that maybe some sort of wild animal finds me before I like have to like drink my own pee or something.
Yeah, man, tough stuff.
All right, I do. This is a heavy song.
Yes.
About whether or not he would take back getting married or bringing his son into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because he says, I thought to myself, if he only knew, he would climb right back in.
It's tough.
He says, if I could take one back, I know what it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard him talk about this song live?
I don't think so. I will say I really love this song. It's probably like, it might be my number 4.
Interesting. Okay.
I just think it's really pretty and warm sounding, even though it's horrendous.
Yeah.
How I've interpreted it is, okay, so is this sarcasm or is this guy just an asshole? And I think it's the latter, at, kind of critiquing this kind of thinking. Because the next line he says, "Now that my blushing bride has done what she's born to do, it's time to bury dreams and raise a son to live vicariously through." Like,
very cynical.
Very cynical. I think to me that's like a critique of it's a window into this guy's thinking that he summarizes giving birth to his son, especially, as being what she was born to do. Right. And now he won't pursue his own interests anymore, but live through his son's achievements or mold him into the kind of person he wants him to be. I take it as like a, if not toxic masculinity, then at least a critique of sort of that kind of guy who's just like, my wife's here to bring boys into the world, and now there's a boy here, and now I got to live through him. And so I don't know, that's kind of how I see it, but it's also like, it's clearly a depressed person and
right.
He's projecting his depression onto the kid immediately. As you said, the second he sees him, he's like, "Oh, you should just go back in." Like, so I don't know. I suspect that it was maybe him wrestling with the idea. I mean, he had a daughter first, so I don't know how personal is necessarily, but maybe having kids leads you to reflect on a situation like this. I take it to mean like if he could take one back, I know what it would be. It would be getting married, because then if he doesn't get married, there's no kid. He's regretting his whole
life
in life. I think is the scene here. A man seeing his son being born and basically being like, "I wish I could take it all back." It's the opposite of how I felt at my son's birth, where I was just like, my mind was blown by bringing new life into the world. I was crying tears of joy. And the idea that somebody would see that and be like, "Oh, fuck, I wish I could take this back," is just like, oh man, it's crushing. So I don't know exactly what the, impetus behind its narrative is, but either way, it's a guy who's in a bummer way.
Yeah.
But I love that tremolo guitar sound in the verses throughout, and then that like delay comes in on the chorus, and like all the guitars throughout are awesome. There's kind of a groovy bass line going, spacey keys throughout. I don't know. So it's a super bummer, and it makes me a little uncomfortable, which I think is kind of supposed to be the vibe you get. But I just love the sound of it. It's like this, and kind of a warm bath of a sad song.
Yeah, you're in a warm bath and folds of skin.
I do remember him saying that his original lyrics were, "When his tiny head emerges from hair and folds of skin," and his wife was like, "That's too gross." So he changed it to "blood and folds of skin." Anyway, still gross, but
yeah. Oh, Dave. Classic Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Old Davey B.
Mm-hmm. He's a goof.
Yep. We're just keep right on chugging to another uplifting song.
Yeah, we say each one's a bummer, like any other song is different in that way.
I know, right? Yeah, there's no uplifting song on this record.
Yeah.
A simple plan. So good.
In the factories are perfectly run. The workers and bosses are living as one. People are equal, people are good, people are working as hard as they should. For my family, it's clothes for my kids. The class war is over and everyone wins. It's such a simple plan.
Another song about a shitty dude who is shitty to his family.
Is he shitty or is he depressed? Or both?
Well, I mean, both probably. I mean, like, so he it's a guy who's some sort of an activist fighting for ending class war, and now that that's done, he's like, I guess I gotta just like now just work to take care of my family. I don't know. I think I'd rather put a shotgun in my mouth.
Well, perhaps he's unwell.
I'm being a little reductive in but like, we fought for a decade, corruption and greed. It gave me a purpose, a reason to breathe. But now that it's over, now that we've won, I still sit in my bedroom alone with a shotgun. To think of my family no longer compels me. With all things in common, they'll manage without me.
I mean, it sounds like the kind of justification a suicidal person makes.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm more empathetic to the plight of this guy. But I understand what you're saying.
I'm not look, we've had plenty of conversations.
Yeah.
So I understand the plight.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess for someone who no longer feels like they have purpose.
Right. Yeah. I think that's what makes the song interesting is it's, again, like, what's another way I can talk about depression?
Yeah.
Where it's like, to me, I should say this is like another top 3 contender for me. I really like the song. It's like, again, that Mogi opening synth line that then turns into the lower bass line. Ooh, I love it. But I think it's a fascinating idea for a story. Like, to me, it almost feels like a short story that would be studied in classes or something. It's like it packs a lot of commentary in with just these sparse details, but it's obviously some sort of, I took it to be like some imagined future where like society's wrongs have been made right. Like, I'm taking him at his word that like truly the class war is over, things are good now, and they were part of this resistance for a long time, and now they live in this sort of utopia. And he's like, why do I feel like empty? And the idea that like, he doesn't know what to do without that purpose to focus on. I feel like that is sort of a metaphor for like, it's obviously not, overthrowing whatever evil system was in place and establishing a truly fair one, but it's like wrestling with the idea of what do you do when you have something that gives you purpose and then that's gone. I think it's an interesting way to sort of unpack that. And the song is called A Simple Plan. Obviously he has everything he wants in theory, but decides by the end of the song that his simple plan is suicide. So like, I don't know. I am compelled by that story. I think feels again sort of like has the satisfying narrative arc of like a short story to me. But
yeah, and maybe as I was saying, I was being a little snarky and reductive and everything, but I understand when you have something to distract you, when you have something to focus on, it's easy to put off what some depressed people might find inevitable.
Right.
So
I'm recommending to this guy that he gets the shotgun out of the house. Like, I think that would be a good move. But I empathize with his plight.
Yeah. Same. One of the many reasons I do not own a gun.
Yeah. They're bad.
They are bad for people with, specifically very bad for people with mental health issues.
Yeah.
Not because people with mental health issues are violent, but because they are more likely to use it on themselves.
Bad for anybody, I say.
Yes. No, John, we're in agreement.
Why are you waving your gun in my face and your NRA membership card?
Yeah, I know. What do you think about my MAGA flag that I have up behind me now?
It's cool as hell.
Many
Don't
people
tread on
saying,
me, bro.
Yes. Oh, gross. All right. Start Without Me.
Romeo
It's a cool one. Another kind of different one. This is one that's written by T.W. Walsh.
Right.
And I've never really been able to track fully what the narrative of the story is. And this is one that I remember somebody asking Dave what it was about. And he's like, I don't really know, because Tim wrote it. And I don't know if he really knows fully either. But the way that I've interpreted it is it's like a gambler, possibly addicted to drugs as well as gambling. He's a dad. A lot of like dads really going through it on this album, which maybe says something about where Dave and or Tim Walsh were at. But his mistakes. He claims that his mistakes are, his pursuit of things like gambling are done for his family. Maybe not dissimilar to the dad in the last song in some ways. Leaving cryptic messages for his wife as he's at the horse track or going out of town, saying there's money behind every picture in the place. And then this whole bridge of, if it's once, I've got it. If it's twice, I don't know what that means exactly, but I get the sense that he's in some sort of danger and perhaps put his family in a precarious situation too, but is like, hey, look, if I get this money coming in, then we're in good shape. So that's kind of the way that I've taken it. I like the sort of crunchy guitar sound that comes in. I think it has like a nice build, especially where it sort of drops out for the bridge and then comes in and it's kind of big power poppy, hooky, satisfying way, especially in the final chorus. So I don't know. It's not like my favorite. It's probably not in my like top half, but I do like the song.
Yeah. I also like it, but it probably falls somewhere in the like in the Arizona area for me. That it's fine, but like I don't know. There are any number of other songs on this record that I would much rather hear live or put on a mix than this one.
No, I agree with that. I feel like even the songs on this album that are at the lowest for me are still pretty great though. So.
Yeah, for sure. And now the song that makes me think of A Simple Plan, The Poison.
The poison makes its way through my body slowly into the pleasure centers of my brain. If you were here, I would admit that I'm an asshole. But now it's over, and I can't stay sober. Though it isn't like I've tried.
Definitely feels like a Bazan specific song.
Yeah, I don't know. You mean like from his personal life?
Maybe getting a little bit more personal as he's maybe in this era also wrestling with the booze and
I mean, I think it's a heartbreak song. It's a relationship ending song, I think. But obviously, as we've said, he's in a place of using alcohol to sort of drink into oblivion, perhaps in his personal life, and that certainly is in this song, and it's in Keep Swinging, and so I think his relationship to alcohol, I feel, is reflected here at this point in his life. I mean, it's a heartbreaker. The idea of I found it very memorable that he refers to wanting to drink until there are X's on his eyes, like a cartoon or something, just being like, everything is lost and I'm just going to drink to not even feel it. So,
can we listen to the saddest closing lines to any album ever?
Yes.
My old man always swore that hell would have no flame, just a front row seat to watch your true love pack her things and drive away.
It's tough. Yeah, I do. I mean, it hits you hard, but I do
Yeah.
love it as an album closer.
Oh,
Like, I think it's
the right
a perfect
choice.
ending. Yeah.
It's the right choice. But fuck, man.
Yeah. Tough.
I can't. Yeah. Yes.
There are relatable elements to many of the songs on this album to people who have had struggles similar to Dave, in various ways.
Yeah. And I'm doing my best in every sense of the word, but also doing my best to not fall victim to the abuse of substances to quiet my mind.
Yes. Well, I commend you for that. I'm pounding this 12% and you're drinking your hop water, so way to go.
Well, I know you're not
right
tonight.
there
I'm
right
not,
now, but in general.
Yeah.
I think he has talked about reckoning with his alcoholism, and in the documentary in Strange Negotiations, he's like, where I came out is like, I didn't decide to quit drinking entirely. It's still part of my life, but it's like under control now, and it's not a problem in the way that it was. And the idea that he was, in these songs, it's the context of a broken relationship or whatever, but in his life, it was largely to deal with this feeling of losing his faith and his identity and turning to booze to numb that pain, among the other sort of pains he was feeling. And just, what a precarious spot that is, because it's not sustainable. And
no,
I'm very grateful he got out of that stage and was able to come out of it. And I hope anybody who listens and resonates with this stuff is able to do the same. So
yes.
Heavy record.
Heavy as hell.
Spent a lot of time talking about it. I love it. I've had so much fun talking about these sad songs these past few episodes. They've really been, I just have gotten so much meaning out of listening to these records in a way that warrants this in-depth discussion that we're able to do together. So I'm grateful for it. And I will say, not to spoil any takes in our upcoming episodes, but so next we're going to get to the Pedro 2.0, the reunited Pedro, their two new records. And I gotta, real talk, Andrew, when they first came out, both Phoenix and Havasu, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is like the Pedro for me. And doing the deep dive on these couple albums, especially Havasu, the new album, to prepare for our next couple episodes, I'm very grateful to the pod for this project of listening deeply, because now I'm very into them and can't wait to talk about them, especially Havasu, as I said. So anyway, next week, Phoenix, we will get to Curse Your Branches on the Patreon at some point in these coming weeks too, because I feel like that's part of the whole experience. There are many great Bazan records to be found that we won't get to, but I encourage everybody to listen to them too. So I hope going through this has been meaningful for you as well. Let us know what you think at Magnified Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Follow and subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And give us a rating or a review. And Andrew, we put out the call. We said, hey, those 5-star reviews really help us. They push us up in the algorithm and helps people find us. So leave us those reviews and we'll read them on the pod. And we got a couple reviews to read here.
Oh, shit.
Label Daddy says, this is like Blink 155, except the bands go to heaven in the end. Sorry, Mark, Tom, Travis, and Satan. God rules. 5 stars. So thank you, Label Daddy. Um,
Amazing.
Eclectic Music Lover says, apparently I was waiting for season 4. Pop punk wasn't really my thing, but I'm a sad bastard, and the bands they're talking about this season are for me. I appreciate the sharing of life and history for these guys because I'm on a similar journey to them, and sometimes it gets lonely out there. Yes, it does. They have some real insight into the musicality and instrumentation on these records, as well as the cultural and religious context they were made in, and are much more than two random Chads talking out their rears. 5 stars. So thank you, Eclectic Music Lover. We appreciate that. We appreciate everybody listening. Throw us those 5 stars. Leave a review. An Apple Podcast. We'll read it on the pod. We appreciate that. You can email us and share your thoughts at magnifiedpod@gmail.com.
You can leave us a voicemail at 872-762-4763, 8727-MAGPOD.
You can support us at the Patreon, patreon.com/magnifiedpod. And you can pick up some new season 4 merch at magnifiedpod.storeenvy.com. Thanks to Small Step Records for sponsoring us. Check out smallsteprecords.com. And thanks to shadow producer Jason and Bruno at Unoriginal Vinyl for our artwork. Well, I think I hear the voice of the spirit begging us to shut the fuck up. We'll be back to try to make you go astray next week when we'll discuss Pedro the Lion's Phoenix.
I don't wanna believe that all of the above is true, but I could be persuaded if you were to give me proof. So why don't you come over Thursday? Maybe we can talk it through. As if some new information were possible to comprehend or introduce. And after
I appreciate people calling in saying they appreciate our cats.
You know, I've always said that our cats are underappreciated.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for someone to be like, is
we don't have as much double time to imitate this season, so we got to take our big fills when we can here.
Yeah, take our big fills with our big trucks.
Oh yeah.
For more shows like this one, visit rockcandyrecordings.com.